Simon loves his boxing. Alongside him is the diminutive but very lovable Spencer Oliver. And alongside him, Joe Joyce's promoter, the man who's behind this fantastic rematch. And he is Frank Warren. Frank, hi to you, sir.
Hi to you, Jim.
I'm surprised you come in and you're so jolly with Simon and myself because of the amount of pestering and badgering we do of you. But you love it, really, do you?
Well, it's business, isn't it? That's all it is. It's part of the game, and you ask questions and valid questions, and I hope we give valid answers.
And Frank's in such a good mood, by the way, because he just spent 15 minutes with me out there having a chat, and that sort of, picked himself up a little bit after thinking he
probably made him feel better about his own life looking at you.
Yeah. So you still come in spite of that chat with Spencer Oliver?
No, we come with Spencer. I was saying that I'm recommending that he should get a rise. He should be definitely getting a new contract.
There you go.
You're negotiating a rise for somebody here at talkSPORT. Oh, Frank, you've come to the wrong place. The other day I negotiated quite a sizable amount less to carry on here. No, I'm not. I'm joking. Frank, good to see you. So as we said there, Joyce tasted defeat for this first time. What's been the interest in this rematch? Because they're two huge guys. They do it again, and there's a lot of mutual respect between the two of them.
That's very true. I mean, they got great amateur pedigree. Both of them won silver medals in their respective Olympic Games, and I thought both of them got robbed. They should have won the gold medals. And as pros, they've done everything that's been asked of them. And the first fight, I really did fancy Joe would win the first fight, and I was proved wrong. Zhang, tremendous competitor. He boxed extremely well, southpaw. He gave Joe a lot of problems, and Joe just couldn't overcome that southpaw stance and the damage that it was causing to his eye during the fight, which eventually caused the referee to stop it because he couldn't see out of it. So this time round, he's got to come with a plan B. He's in with a guy who does fancy the job again. That's why he's here. And Joe knows that he can't afford to slip up on this because at his age and Zhang's age, they've got to keep that seat, as I always say, at the top table. Eventually, there's going to be the mandatories are going to be called for the respective champions, and as far as the WBO concerned, the winner of this fight will be the interim champion, and we'll have to the WBO champion will have to defend against them next year, sometime early next year.
Frank, do you read anything into Joe Joyce coming in? Like when he boxed, if we use Joseph Parker as an example, he boxed Joseph Parker and he weighed 19 stone 3 in that fight against Parker, and that for me was like a career best performance from him. He come in at 18 stone 2 against Zhilei Zhang, who weighed 19 stone 8. What was the reasoning behind that? I mean, I think that was a huge mistake.
I agree with you. I was quite shocked when they announced the weights. I don't know what it is. Maybe they thought he was going to be more mobile, but it didn't work out. And I liked him at that weight. To say against Joe Parker was I thought it was a phenomenal performance. A good fight. Parker's a decent, one of the top heavyweights in the world, and he done a job on him. So I'm hoping this time round that the weight, if he comes in around that weight again, that's for me is his optimum weight. That's the weight he boxes the best at. I hope we get the result on Saturday.
Do you think, because obviously it's all about adaptability and whether Joe can adapt in this fight and get round the southpaw style of Zhilei Zhang, who was very dangerous with that left hand as we saw, but Joe was sort of sitting in the pocket a little bit too much, and he was boxing like he was the guy that had that weight advantage on him. And it sort of didn't work out that way. The shots seemed to be, when he was getting hit with those shots, it seemed to be rocking him like he was feeling the punches a lot more at this lower weight.
He's heavy-handed, saying there's no doubt about it. But let's be honest, Joe in his previous fights has taken shots. He has taken shots to throw his punches. He'll take a punch to land a couple. And this time round, it didn't work out. I just felt he just did not cope with a southpaw stance. Do
you think because he makes a big, it's almost like his stock in trade leading up to this fight was his preparedness to take shots. And I've heard you talk about it before, about the fact that you'd prefer that he didn't take as many shots as he took. He took a lot of shots against Carlos Takam, didn't he? And he's walked through these fights in terms of Joe Parker hitting with everything but the kitchen sink, and all I saw Joe Joyce do was breathe over the ropes once before he went and knocked him out in the ninth round. But do you think a lot of that might have been the weight difference in terms of the resistance? Because when I saw him come in the ring, because you normally see Joe coming in, and I saw him come in into the fight that we saw with Daniel Dubois behind closed doors, he looked absolutely huge. And when I saw him come in against Zhang, he didn't, obviously, and we can discuss the reasons why, because we said he's a stone and a half lighter. But do you think that would have done a lot to his punch resistance to be able to have taken the shots? Because he's going to take them again, because that's his style, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's a factor. There's no doubt about it. But the other side of it is the shots that were being thrown, that jab from that southpaw stance, was causing him problems with his eye, and his eye closed up. And once your eye's gone, you can't see out your eye. You do have a problem seeing shots coming. It takes all the, where you could move out of the way of a punch. Sometimes you don't see it coming, and what you're throwing yourself, because you're only looking out of one eye, your shots won't land. So it affected him in a lot of ways. But I genuinely believe, had his eye not closed up, I think into the latter round,
because of his
I
engine.
fancied. That's what I fancied, but it didn't happen. So this time round, and he was hit with some strong shots. This time round, I hope he comes in at a decent weight, and I hope that there's head movement, because there has to be head movement.
Do you think he underestimated? I mean, I thought Zhang, and I think you think the same. I thought he beat Hrgovic in that fight, or Hrgovic nicked it anyway.
Yeah.
Do you think Joe underestimated him in the first fight? Because there was a lot of noise, and Joe was, again, I make the point, I'm a big admirer of Joe. I like him as a boy, I like him as a fighter, and I want him to be successful. So it comes from that position. But there was a lot of noise made about, he was talking about how robust he was, Joe, and how he could take any shot, and he didn't care about it. And that seemed to be a badge of honour. Do you get the impression from the training camp, bringing him in a stone and a half lighter than the other fella, through to his attitude, there was an element of pricing in some underestimation of Zhang?
I think there might have been. I think there may have again been an element of that, but I can see also the thought process behind that. That if he's a little bit lighter, he'll move more. He'll have more movement. But it just didn't work out. Very early in the fight, he was getting caught. And he just didn't, and that pattern didn't change.
Why would he need to be lighter against Zhang than he would against Parker? Because Zhang hasn't got quick feet; he's got quick hands, right?
Yeah, but I think the game plan was that Joe would use his mobility a little bit more and take Zhang into the second half of the fight, where we've seen Zhang fade and then wear him down. But I think, if anything, it worked against Joe Joyce, and he looked lethargic coming in at that weight, because he looked fantastic on the scales. When you saw him, look what Joe does is he's the juggernaut for a reason. Yeah. He comes forward, and he's everything he does is just straightforward, non-stop working. That weren't there. Everything had gone. The punch resistance seemed to have left Joe. The punch power seemed to have left him, and he looked lethargic. That was my observation of it.
And I got to agree with that, Spence. It did. There's no doubt about it. And as I say, the injury did it for him, and that was it. Once that eye was gone, he was getting caught more and more regular with it. And obviously Zhang's he's a top class boxer, both at amateur and pro, and he had a target to aim for.